Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Wizard, streaming live almost daily. Simulcasting this one to Twitch and YouTube. Strip the audio from it and upload it to Anchor.fm and the one you're probably more familiar with, which is Spotify. Okay, everything's streaming. I am going to turn on the 5-minute counter right now. 5 minutes. The teaching topic: why love and light sometimes isn't enough. Really, bit of a facetious title, but not necessarily. All right, stay tuned. See you in 5 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. Ask the Wizard. Oh, at 12:22. Oh, 12:23. Anyway, for August the 11th. Again, simulcast on YouTube, Twitch, strip the audio and upload it to anchor.fm, the one you're more familiar with, I'm sure, which will be Spotify. Go to Spotify, search for Ask the Wizard Coach, and you'll find me. So for today, I'm going to bring Mr. Flipchart in. We tried that yesterday, and I don't know what he was doing. But he was flipping back and forth to weird screens and stuff. So I just quit. This one. So in this one, we're going to talk about emotions. So here's the thing with emotions. Oh, actually, let's bring Mr. Flipchart in and we'll explain emotions and see if we'll test him and see if he's going to work with this one. So, emotion. Come on. There we go. Oh, and it's going to think, hold on, it thinks it's on. I have to turn off pen mode. That's what I want. There, we should be good now. Otherwise, it makes these little things here. So, an emotion. There's actually two parts to an emotion. There's the label of the emotion, and then there's the sensations. I could say physical. So when you think about it, the label of, hey Ray, how you doing? The label of an emotion is non-physical. So what I mean by that, the label of an emotion is a word. Happy, sad, angry. I mean, on and on and on. They're just words. But the physical sensations attached to that label is actually where you feel the emotion. Now this is something that often I find trips people up. We get so hung up on trying to label the emotion, but the label isn't what matters. Now, and it's kind of cool when you think about this. When we say that an emotion is positive or good, or when we say an emotion is negative or bad, what are we referring to? Well, what we're referring to is not the label. What we're referring to is the sensations. So a good or a positive emotion is one that physically feels good. Whatever the sensations that you feel in your body are, they physically feel good. They feel pleasurable. I like this. A negative or a bad emotion are simply ones where the sensations don't feel good. And as I said, what really matters is not the label. What makes an emotion comfortable, uncomfortable, we could use those words as well, are the physical sensations. Okay, you with? And this is a really neat exercise. So just a little homework assignment for you. When you're feeling an emotion, whatever it is, rather than focusing on the label, what I want you to do is focus on the sensations that you're feeling. Because labels can mean all sorts of different things to different people. And that's from a mechanical perspective, that's not what matters anyhow. What matters is I don't like the way this physically feels. Forget about the label. Is I don't like the way this physically feels. And that's the indicator you're looking for. And those are such powerful indicators. Tons and tons of teachings that I have and are out there on managing the sensations in your body, because that's what an emotion is, and the indicators they give you and what we can do with them, which actually is pretty much the theme for this show. Okay, so you with me so far? Let's go back to Mr. Flipchart. And boy, it's been a while since I did this. Is it this one? And we add a new screen. Okay. Every emotion, as it relates to the sensations, fit along a spectrum. So for those of you that are listening to this in the podcast, I've drawn a horizontal line. And at the left, and going to the left on this line, I call pain. I'm making this just real simple words here. Going to the right, pleasure. So what you could also say is the pain is what we would label as negative emotions, and the pleasure positive. Now, again, this is a scale or a spectrum. So every labeled emotion has some point along this spectrum. Now, I'm just going to cherry pick some labels, okay? Let's say, and again, these, like I said, the labels are so ambiguous at times. Let's pick a good one. Despair. Oh, yes, or hopelessness. So where would they fit on this spectrum? They would fit, I'm going to use a different color for those of you that are watching the video. It's way over on the left-hand side. So way over in the pain sort of side of that spectrum. It just doesn't feel good at all. I'm going to say, well, happy. So happy is going to be quite a ways over on the pleasure side. And so every emotion that you have, throw the label out, feel the sensations, and they're going to be somewhere along this spectrum. Now, this is really important when it comes to managing them. Forget about the label. Let's manage them, just because your body is this wonderful indicator, barometer, creative tool. I mean, it's such a powerful instrument, but we're so often so detached from it and don't understand the messages that it's giving us and how to manage it. So why I say, and again, it was a bit of a catchphrase, but that why love and light sometimes isn't enough is, I was going to say in the manifesting movement, which is true, but in the whole spiritual movement, just to use that somewhat generic term, sometimes it's sold, it's a common perception, belief that if we're doing things right, or if we're really spiritual, or if we're really whatever, or if we want to be effective manifestors or healers or on and on and on, we have to always be in the pleasure side of the spectrum. We always have to be happy, happy, joy, joy, love and light and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. But it's been my experience, and not just my experience, that it's not always practical or even achievable. And again, this isn't just my experience, but I can only speak personally from that, is if you're really, oh, hey, Mary, how you doing? If you're really growing and stretching and expanding, you're not always going to be love and light, right? If you're, like, again, let's say if you're getting in there and mixing it up and doing things, here's my love and light over here. Sometimes you're going to be over here. Now, I'm not saying you live here, but you're going to move all the way back and forth along this spectrum as you're navigating your journey. And if you're not, and this is just me, if you're not, then it's been my experience, you're not really digging down and really introducing some of that strong, fundamental, quote unquote, life-changing changes. This is just, well, not just a lot of folks, a lot of actually really smart folks, is that there's value in that whole emotional spectrum if and when and as we know how to manage it. So Bill, bring up Mr. Flip Chart. So here you are, and you're somewhere down here on the pain side of this emotional spectrum. And you're quite a ways over. Then you've been taught, well, okay, in order for me, I'm going to use just a different color here. For those of you that are listening to this on podcast, if you go to healingcenter.ca, center, CENTER.ca, you'll find a video of this. Actually on Spotify too, because now Spotify has video. So search for Ask the Wizard Coach on Spotify. You'll find a video for this as well. Also on YouTube, search for my name, first name, last name. You'll be able to find it as well. So you're somewhere on this negative side for whatever reason. And you go, well, okay, this is not where I want to be. First of all, it doesn't feel good. And then I've been taught that, this is not where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be way over at the whole love and light side of the spectrum. But here's the thing. If you're way over on this left-hand side, the chances of you sort of pole vaulting all the way over to here are pretty much slim to none. At least in one fell swoop. you're probably not going to be able to go from all the way over to the left, all the way over to the right. There's just too much momentum, topic for another teaching session, that's got you kind of stuck where you're at. But here's the thing. You don't have to get from all the way over to the left, all the way over to the right immediately. All you have to do. So there's actually two things. So you're heading to, so things get, and you notice how things tend to get badder and badder, and that's wonderful grammar, worse and worse and worse and better and better and better. So you're kind of heading in this left-hand side, getting into the pain spectrum or part of it. And it's like, oh God, this just feels like hell. And then it seems to get worse and seems to get worse and seems to get worse and seems to get worse. And then you go, I'm supposed to go way back there to the love and light, and I can't do it. It seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. So the first thing is just see if you can slow down the momentum. The example I always use is if you're going 80 mile an hour south and you want to turn around and go 80 mile an hour north, the first thing you got to do is slow down, because you're not going to be able to just spin and go the other direction. Bad things happen. It's physics, right? So the first thing you need to do is kind of slow down your momentum going in the direction you don't want to go. And using, again, whatever tools you have to use, but understanding what you're trying to do. You're not trying to get to love and light right now. You're just trying to sort of slow down this kind of downward spiral, right? And of course, there's all sorts of ways to do that. But just sort of for now, just understand that often the more I try and go all the way in that direction, it tends to just fuel me more going in the direction I don't want to go. So you cut yourself a lot of slack if you can't get instantly happy, happy, joy, joy. Because if you want to call it the laws of physics, you just can't. I'm not saying it never happens, but generally speaking, you can't. But you can slow down the momentum some. Another way to think of it is, again, you don't have to get from, oh God, this is awful and terrible, I'm going to dig a hole and, climb in it and then cover it up, to, oh, wind beneath my wings. But maybe you can get, and again, I'm cherry picking things now. Maybe you can kind of move from feeling powerless, okay, to feeling angry. Now here's the thing. I mean, flipping back to our flip chart, and I'm just picking stuff, right? So if this is powerless, way down here, and just over here, again, I'm just making stuff up, is anger. If you can move from feeling powerless to feeling angry, you've actually made a move in the right direction. See, that's the thing. You don't have to get from I'm powerless, I'll just use that word, to, again, life and light, wind beneath my wings, all in one step. But maybe you could be moved to anger, because anger at least is heading in the right direction. And I think that's the key to understand in this whole process. Is I don't have to immediately go from one to the other. All I need to do is slow down the momentum as much as I can and see if I can go just a little bit in the direction I want to go. If I can go from, and again, I'm picking words here, powerless to angry, at least I'm heading in the right direction. And as I said, I'm just using these labeled emotions. Try not to get, hey, James, how you doing? Try not to get too hung up on what's the label of the emotion I'm feeling, right? Focus on the sensations in your body. The reason that powerlessness, just use this label, feels so gross is because it physically feels so gross. So what can you do to take those sensations of feeling really, really bad and feeling maybe not quite as bad? A phrase I often use is the sort of the I want to feel good, or at least a little less worse. And that's so important to remember, that when you find yourself kind of on the left-hand side of this spectrum, this emotional spectrum, is your job. I mean, if you can jump right to the other side, sometimes you can, sometimes I can, but more than likely, you're going to at least take a few initial small steps to feel just a little less worse. And in this case, angry, and I'm just using that word again, angry is excellent. If you can move from hopelessness to anger, you've moved in the right direction. A person say, well, angry isn't love and light. And it's like, exactly. But it's also not despair and hopelessness. So at least I'm moving in the right direction. And once you start moving in the right direction, now the same momentum that had you go in the way you didn't want to go is, and it may take some time here, is going to support you in going in the direction you do want to go. Simple, most assuredly, doesn't mean easy. Well, oh, sorry, that was really a loud snap. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're all in this together. See you on the web.